Hello, guys, and welcome to my final NFL mock draft. I wanted to surprise you all because I said last Friday that, hey, I might do like my favorite players, in the draft and, next Tuesday and that sort of thing. But that was all a smoke screen. A smoke screen that I know you guys aren't going to believe it, but NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell actually sent me the script. I've got it on this small piece of paper, and it seems kind of jank, but it's like if you really want, to make it seem like the script isn't real, you're gonna write it on a small little Connecticut thing right here, and it's on the back here, and I cannot believe what is going on. I just couldn't believe it, but I'm just here to deliver to you guys the most accurate draft, verbatim, what is going to happen in the first round. And, we're going to have to force some trades here, but it's going to be completely asinine what is going on. It is only round one, as there needs to be a little bit of allure, and, for the, rounds 2 to 7 and that sort of thing. But without further ado, let's start this thing, you guys. And, this is the only draft you'll ever have to see with how, goddamn accurate it is. So we're entering the draft. I can tell you guys looking at this thing that, oh my goodness, we've been led to believe that the Tennessee Titans are going Cam Ward, right? We're obviously starting the draft here. They're saying that this guy is going to go, number one for months. The Titans have been playing hardball. They really don't actually think that Cam Ward is the dude, to take them out, of the struggle that they're in a division where they could more than likely win. So, looking at the trades here, we are probably going to have to force it. We'll see if the team they're actually trading with are up here, So interestingly enough, we actually, we don't have the team that they're actually going to trade for. Isn't that just another bizarre smokescreen? That PFF, one of the biggest things, that analyze the NFL is in cahoots, and that their algorithm doesn't actually have, the team that they're going to trade with. And this is just so damn wild. It is so damn wild to me. You guys are not going to believe this. So we're actually going to trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So obviously, the Titans are only going to trade down to 21, and that sort of thing. It seems bizarre. Oh, yeah, the Steelers are in cahoots, to get a player. Oh, the pressure's mounting. We've got a little bit of notes in here in crazy fine print. Thank God I have 20/20 vision, to read this, or I might not send an accurate portrayal of what is happening on draft night, you guys. Just imagine, here, you're seeing this as a Pittsburgh fan. You're like, what? We traded up to number one? How many picks are we going to have to give up? We only got 6 picks. But for a QB, no price is too steep. They're trading both of their round ones 2 years in a row. They've been going out without a early round one pick for many, many years, never having a losing record for however many bloody years. Tomlin has kept this team, going about, at least 9 wins, for however many seasons in a row. So yeah, we're trading 2 first rounders and a couple on the tail end. So, we're, all in all, we're only going to have 4 picks. Now, granted, I do think that the Steelers made enough moves. There's enough middle talent in a draft where it's like, oh, yeah, we can nail on all our picks. So maybe it's crazy for the Steelers to do this, But they, are trading up to the number 1 overall pick, and they are grabbing Cam Ward. Cam Ward out of Miami. Now pick number 2. We've got the Cleveland that are like, what in God's name? What in God's name is going on? They just got their QB of the future. Oh, we're in the same division. We're going to go and we're going to grab Shedeur. We've been led to believe and lied to, you guys. Lied to. To make these, make it believe like Shedeur could fall down, even to where, you got the Steelers and they're like, oh yeah, we'll take Shedeur should he fall to us at 21, but nah, we're going to trade up to him, because we're not sure. We don't really believe the Browns. We don't believe the Giants. We don't believe, that even, the Jets, might be interested in a QB, or the Saints. We're going to go up. We're going to make sure we get our guy, Cam Ward. Now we get to the Giants, and they're like, oh, man, all that smoke screening we didn't really work in our favor. We're such a fail of an organization. A failure of an organization that, like, even with all the breadcrumbs and lies that we did, to make it seem like, hey, we'll take Abdul Carter, and that sort of thing, we're actually going to think we're doomed. And now we're going to make it seem like, oh, we let Saquon go for a reason. They're actually going to go and grab Ashton Jeanty, 3rd overall pick, in the draft. I know it's asinine to think about, you guys, but imagine, you lose Saquon and he nearly breaks the single season record. And then you're like, well, guys, we did it because we knew Jeanty would be available. Our foresight is unparalleled in the NFL. And that hubris is why you keep losing season after season, because you don't need Jeanty, but you're like, oh, we'll overlook Travis Hunter. And guess what? Now we have to deal with Drake May, Travis Hunter for however many years, where it's like, oh my God, maybe the Patriots are back. Maybe the Patriots, who we thought were going to take a lineman, are back and that sort of thing. Nah, we're taking Travis Hunter, and he's going to be a nightmare with Drake May for 15 years, type of thing. A position that it's like, we don't even need him to play DB too much. We've got Christian Gonzalez, there, and a respectable coach and Vrabel, now. And then we get to the Jaguars. The Jaguars, much to think about, nothing. They're like, oh man, we were throwing smoke screens too. We thought we could have gotten Travis Hunter in this situation, maybe we should have traded up. Maybe that was the case to me, but we remember, oh man, we lost Andre Cisco. We're going to completely lose our minds with our head coach, and we're going to go and we're going to make Malachi Starks our, a top 5 pick because we're such a crapshoot of an organization, type of thing. And then, we're the Raiders, man. What are we going to do? What do we even have here? What in the world? Oh, wait. Who better to pair across from Max Crosby than Abdul Carter? You know what I'm saying? Abdul freaking Carter. We got Crosby and Carter, man. We got the double C pass rush plan of attack under Pete Carroll. This is starting to look like Legion of Boom prospectively. And now the Jets. The Jets losing out on both QBs. The Jets, such a crazy failure of an organization. The Jets, a team that, like, even though they could use Graham, Campbell, maybe even Walter Nolan, or, or even Membu, it's absolutely nuts. A lot of these guys here, maybe even Tyler Warren, but nah, we're going to trade. This is going to be a move, to make people really, really wonder, with who's available, who the heck do we grab? nah, we're not going to grab anybody. We don't realize, who the heck, that sort of thing. And we're going to trade with the Eagles. We're trading down to 32, from 7 because we're like, oh, there's so much talent, we don't mind. And the Eagles, oh yeah, we lost talent, but we draft so well, we don't need that many picks. We're gonna give up our first, be it that it's a 32, our third, and a fifth here, just for this pick because, this will likely be accepted. Let's go ahead and see. So with the Eagles at pick number 7, much to everyone's dismay, they're going to grab Mason Graham. Mason Graham put on that D line, the best interior defender proclaimed, in this draft. We're trading up to 7 to grab Graham. Graham's our man, and he can. Now we got the Panthers, a team that, hey, we might have grabbed Graham. We might have grabbed a tackle. We might grab a wide receiver. And uneventfully enough, the player we're going to draft T-Mac. T-Mac, we're so thankful we don't need a QB. We believe in the last half resurgence of Bryce Young that we just need to get him more weapons. Xavier Legette's fine. Thielen's old but fine. We need a guy who's tall as well. It's 2 guys that we can toss the ball up to and who Bryce Young can see past the line, if you know what I mean. So yeah, we're a team that didn't fall victim to these, guys jumping up the draft and shaking up the top 10 up in here, and now we're the Saints. We feel like we're overly screwed. We're trading out of this because we're not going to get either of the QBs either. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to trade up with a team that desperately needs this pick, a team that thinks they need this pick so damn bad, and is going to add a player, that's going to be absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts, you guys. I can't tell you how nuts this kind of is. Kansas City trading in to the top 10 from 31. The 2 teams in the Super Bowl, doing this and bringing a haul of picks from them. The Chiefs, I don't know what you're thinking. You need a good amount of linemen, but they're like, we're weapon obsessed. We're gonna do this kind of stuff, and that sort of thing. We're forcing this trade, and this team is grabbing Tyler Warren. We now have the heir to the Kelsey legacy on this team. A guy who, we're gonna plug him in at halfback. What do we need Isaiah Pacheco for anymore? We're going to plug him out at wide receiver. We're going to even plug him in at QB after, Mahomes gets beat up, because they're not drafting any O-linemen. And then we get to the Bears. The Bears, Ginty hopefuls. They need a tackle. We don't value linemen. When do we ever draft linemen early? We're not that type of team. With plenty of good players here, players that would definitely help our team. The team that we're actually going to trade with isn't even going to be in the first round. The Bears, trading all the way back. And guess who? Guess who they're going to trade with, you guys? They're trading all the way back with Jacksonville. Jacksonville, a team that doesn't, that's going to end up having 2 top 10 picks. What a crazy and bizarre move after they seem so vigilant in free agency. They're like, we don't need to draft players. We're just going to be free agent salary cap spenders. And might have to be after the draft, after we don't have, the players that we need around Caleb Williams to make this team successful. So, we're trading out of the first round. We're getting a haul of picks from the Jaguars who are, just stacked with picks. They're like, we'll trade a bunch. We need to move up. We need to move up to this pick. And regardless of who we actually need here, We're going to kind of go and we're going to reach a bit. We're going to do a draft day spill. Oh, we're worried that a tight end just got grabbed. This other one is at risk. We're grabbing Loveland. After we traded Ingram, we had a good pass catching tight end, or we got rid of Ingram, cutting him. Oh, we need to get Loveland, man. We love Loveland, man. T-Law to Loveland, a match made in heaven. Right, brother? So now moving on to San Fran, a team that it's like, oh, we have so many picks, but we need more. We are a completely revamped team, and we're gonna prove it with this pick. Yeah, we're gonna trade with the Falcons, who are paranoid of losing out on their player. The Falcons, who could definitely need, quite a bit of players and that sort of thing. 15 to 11. Oh, it's only four spots type of thing, but they're going to end up trading away their last 2 picks, you guys. I was like, the Falcons, who needed more picks, trading up to essentially give away 2 picks, likely be accepted. That's wild to me. And the Falcons, and it's one of those things that I've been saying, why does this team need a wide receiver? Why is that listed as their top, one of their top needs? I think that it's been the quarterback play that has, crippled this team, but they're going to trade up and they're like, we need to get one of the most electric guys in this draft, and we're grabbing Luther Burden because we're just so damn weapon obsessed that we don't want to address defense. We don't want to pass rush. We don't want picks either to address that. When this team, talent wise is so damn close, I'm like, what the hell are you doing? What has the GM of the Falcons been drinking these last however many years, where it's like, nah, we don't need a pass rush in a pass rush league, and then we get to the Cowboys. This was kind of one of those rare ones. In the notes here, it's telling me that the Cowboys, they've only traded down a handful of times under Jerry, the damn Cowboys, but they're going to trade down here. And of course, it doesn't list it here. Like I said, the PFF is in on the script. They don't want the actual projected results to be available to the public, when a lot of these draftees are more morally ethical and saying that, hey, most of these teams aren't interested in this pick. No, there's so many good players here that, like, goodness gracious, they are actually going to trade it away. And to none other than the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns, who hoarded up on picks just so that they could trade up, from 33. And it's like, and then they're like, oh, yeah, let's give, the Cowboys a bunch of other picks, early picks that were like, yeah, let's give them a bunch of ones. They don't have ones around 104. Jerry Jones feels the need with this stacked deep draft class that he's like, oh, we have so many needs, even though he doesn't act like it. He says, we're all in. And that sort of thing. It's kind of nuts to me. I'm like, oh, the one time I received this script is that, man, Jerry Jones actually makes a trade back. It's kind of nuts. And guess what? We've got, this team that, hey, they feel the need. They're like, this guy fell. What a steal. We're going to go and grab Will Campbell. Even though Membu's on the board and but we need a tackle and we want some short-armed tackle, of half an inch, shorter than what people want. We want Will Campbell. He sounds like a Brown. He sounds like he takes a great big shit on the organization when they pay him big money. Oh, it's not like we didn't have Jedrick Wills, and it's like, who was a first round, like an early round tackle pick that was just garbage for us. And then we go from Jedrick Wills to Will Campbell, because we will draft these players, no pun intended. But then the Dolphins, a team that's like, hey, we've got green on our uniforms. We're a non-serious team, but we're just going to go ahead and we're going to draft Mike Green right here. Mike Green, going down, and not even dropping, but it's like, oh, the Falcons are taking Mike Green, but they traded up and they didn't want him. They did not want him because all they want is a bunch of weapons, like it's Madden, or something like that. And then we get to the Colts, and the Colts in complete disarray. They're like, we wanted what was this guy's name that went to the Chiefs? No, we wanted Tyler Warren. He was going to save this franchise, and there's no way he should be like an early pick type of thing. And it's like we look at the huge upside of some of these players and then just a complete robbery. Who could use, a cornerback? Who could use a defensive interior? The New York Jets coming back up into this round, trading the pick they just got from Philadelphia with a slew of picks to fix this decrepit team. And it's like, and then they're like, nah, we don't need the picks. We were happy with our original picks. We're just going to throw around Philadelphia's picks that they gave us and Houston because, hey, we don't like Houston either. These AFC picks are cursed. We forced this trade. Crazy how, I guess, for whatever reason, the Jets are so decrepit that like, oh, they're laying down the floor plan for these teams. And then the Jets who need an lineman, they're like, oh no, we're not going with a lineman. We just lost a corner. They're grabbing Jahdae Barron. I know what you guys are thinking, like Jahdae Barron and Sauce Gardner. Oh, they just replaced the slot that they just let go. Kind of crazy that I'm like, this is the script? That seems way too obvious, type of thing. Like, how does that help the ratings go up and that sort of thing? You know what I mean? Like, holy crap, it just doesn't make any sense. That's way too obvious. But it just shows to show that like, oh, the script writer's like, I'm sick of the Jets. I've milked this franchise for way too long, with their narratives, Woody Johnson's son being essentially the interim GM, or being the actual GM. What is going on in New York? New York, crazy. And now we finally get to the, the Niners who are like, we traded back. But hey, guess what? We get the tackle that we wanted. Holy crap. It's going to make the bloody Niners look like geniuses. And as a Packer fan, I'm like, what is this? All these teams are a bunch of moronic teams. And you see why, all the top half of the league are played for fools, and played to a T by, some of these trades. And I'm just like, what? If I'm watching this and I'm going to the draft, you guys, and I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to be nodding my head up and down like it's like, I told you guys, I got the script right here. This script, crazy as it may seem, in a draft where it's like, oh, none of these guys are blue chip, but like, look at all these, these playoff Super Bowl favorites making moves, acting like this is the golden age draft that's going to define your franchise for the next 10 years. You know what I mean? And then we get to the Cardinals. The Cardinals who are like, how the heck did this happen? We're grabbing Walter Nolan to a much-needed defensive interior. The guy who, has a little bit of a character issue, but hey, who better than to have him in him than Calais Campbell, one of the most upstanding citizens in the NFL. Like, who doesn't love Calais Campbell? It all falls into place. They went out inside this guy because they're like, oh, we're going to get some bangers in this draft, some good defensive interior in a deep defensive interior class. And Walter Nolan, who, you'd think, upside wise, God, this guy could be really good. But nah, he's going to fall to 16. He's going to fall to the, bottom half of the first round. Crazy to think about, type of thing. Then we get to the Bengals. Now, this is wild to me. The Bengals, who are like, who the heck did we go right here? Oh, there's a number of teams that want to trade. There's a lot of teams that want to trade. The Titans, who are like, maybe we traded too far back. Maybe we traded too far back, you guys, into this round. But we've got to trade up for picks. We're getting a little bit paranoid. Our guy's not going to be there, and it's like, you're going to end up forking over, a couple of these, for a late round pick. And it just seems like, oh, the Bengals fleeced the Titans. Tennessee, Cincinnati, what is going on here? And Tennessee, you know, I was like, there's no freaking way. There's no way that this team, you know, would do this. But it's like, it just goes to show you that it's like, oh yeah, this team is willing to throw money on hopes and dreams, but they just can't get the QB position right. They bring in Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe, they're like, we want the athletic freaks that like what the... You know, like what the Ravens have. Oh, we're just a copycat team and we know he'll be here. But, you know, paranoia and the Bengals being, the team that they are, they're like, we want to get back into contention and we're going to rob some team, you know, to get some very good draft capital. And then we got Seattle and they're like, good Lord, you know, we could use some linemen. You know, we're actually going to reach right here and we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab Josh Simmons. We don't care. We like the upside. Welcome to Seattle, Josh Simmons. You make it into the first round despite the injury concerns. And despite, you know, so many people saying that, oh, the Seahawks are for sure trading back. You know, they're trading back in this draft. It's like, nope, smoke screen, you guys. That's the theme of this draft. Smoke screen with hardly any blue chip players, according to most. And I'm like, I don't see it. You know, right situation, right prospect, right development, superstardom is what I'm saying. And then we get to the Buccaneers. And oh, lo and behold, you know, a player who should be going a bit earlier has fallen to us. We're grabbing Jihad Campbell to pair with David, and good Lord, what are we going to freaking do? You know, these other teams that are in the division, we're going to be chased by Jihad Campbell all day. Jihad Campbell, good Lord, you know, and that sort of thing. And then we get to the Broncos. The Broncos, a team with wide receiver needs, and they really need kind of a field stretcher. Well, they're going Golden right here. Golden, that guy, you know, won't have to move very far, you know, go very far from Texas to Colorado, you know, and they got their boy. You know, they got their golden boy, and Sean Payton can't resist because he used to be on a team called the Saints that also repped the gold, you know, type of thing. And he's like, man, Matt, you've got it on this team, you know, to develop into a 1,600-yard receiving threat under the accurate Bo Nix. Now we go to the Bengals, who just pulled off an Omega fleece. An Omega fleece, you guys, who need linemen. And they're like, we traded back and we, you know, robbed this team. And it's like, you know, we need guard, D-line, and linebacker. I don't know why the heck it doesn't say they need tackle on this team. Who even knows the halfback on this team? But guess what? They're actually grabbing Hampton. They wanted Hampton because Hampton, you know, is the running back that they need, the halfback that they need, that they're like, oh man, this guy is going to be our next Joe Mixon. And I was like, all right, you know, and I'm like, I'm seeing eerily similar resemblances to the Giants being like, oh, we actually need a halfback. And the desperation has been creeping up on them for over a year, you know, since the other, you know, almost a year since the other running backs they had, you know, either traded or left, you know, in free agency. And I'm like, what? You know, crazy how you never want to get the protection for Joe Burrow. Let's hope Hampton doesn't get put on his back when he's taking on that blitzer, you know, next season. When we could have went Kelvin Banks, you know, or Gray Zabel or any of the other tackles that are like, yeah, we could grab these guys. Now we're looking at the Chargers, and the Chargers, much to their glee, are going to take, you know, an insane, incredibly promising player, you know, And you guys are, you're not going to believe this. You are not going to believe what is going on with the Chargers. They're going to add essentially a guy, Jaden Higgins. Jaden Higgins to the Chargers. People have been saying he may creep into the first round, that 6'4" talent frame. Why did they bring back Mike Williams? Now they got Mike Williams and Jaden Higgins on the outside with Ladd McConkey, tearing the defense a new one, going straight down the throat in the middle of the field. And then we get to my Packers. My Packers, who, crazy enough, there are some teams that are like, man, we really need this position. And they're of course going to trade. Why is anybody shocked with this? They're actually trading with the Bills. The Bills, who are like, oh, we need to move up 7 spots for this guy we didn't think would be there for a crazy position of need. And they're like, this is a guy that's going to be able to pick off that guy, Pat Mahomes, maybe even Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson when we meet in the playoffs. Who the heck knows? And the Packers, they're going to grab this pick from Minnesota and a pick from Chicago, just to spite Chicago and saying you shouldn't have traded this pick back, back for the Packers. The Packers saying that they're going to trade back, and they do so. And it's probably one of the more obvious things. I was happy and ecstatic about this. And then, hey, guess what? We're going to take the best player available at a crazy position of need in Will Johnson. You are now a Buffalo Bill. You go from one cold place to another cold place. You just, you will have to play there, and stick it to those wide receivers with your Johnson. Now the Vikings, crazy enough with their limited amount of picks, they're kind of like looking at this. They're like, man, we wish we could have gotten Hampton. It's too bad we didn't have any blasted draft capital to be able to do anything to move up, as we need much more than a halfback, of course. Oh, we were kind of hoping Will Johnson fell here because we definitely could use the DB help. Oh my goodness, we got so screwed. All the players available are positions not of need. Edge, wide receiver, we're going to overlook Kenneth Grant. We don't need edge, linebacker, or tackle. And it's like, man, okay, we are going to trade back and we are going to, this is going to be crazy obvious to us, that this is going to happen. We're going to trade out of the first round with the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys, crazy enough, they're like, we need this pick. We really need to, to add some more guys. We need talent, Jerry Jones, and it's like here with the Vikings, crazy enough, they're not even going to gain pick leverage with this. Like, yeah, we'll trade this one from San Fran. We don't need it, and we're just going to keep the same number of picks, but trade down in a nonsensical Viking-ish move, you guys. The Vikings trading out of round 1 and, oh my goodness, what is going on? And then it's like, and then we have the, the Cowboys, who obviously haven't made a pick yet. They have plenty of needs. They're like, what do we need? We need an edge. We need, running back. Apparently running back's not a thing, and much to, their dismay, they're going to overshoot and they're going to grab a bloody safety. And they're not even going to look at Xavier Watts. They're going to grab a bloody safety in the first round, overreach, and people are going to be like, is this what an all-in team does? And the rest of America, 99% of America is going to laugh their heads off at the laughing stock that the bloody Cowboys are. I mean, good Lord. And I'm just like, man, dude, like, what is happening with Jerry Jones's mental? Like, what does he think he wins with Winston? And it's, a guy with the name Kevin, he must be good at sports. I just don't know what he's thinking. I don't know what he's thinking, you guys. And then we get to a team the Texans, who it's like, holy crap, man, we didn't really have to move at all. We're grabbing Gray Zabel. We are grabbing Gray Zabel to be, our new stud tackle who can also, potentially play guard. And he's going to be a stud for us. And then we look at the Rams. The Rams who are like, man, dude, we missed out on the tight ends. Goodness gracious me, like, what are we going to do? Nah, we're going to go around and we're going to draft Kelvin Banks for that shoddy O-line that we have that hasn't been able to always stay healthy. They were a little bit healthier last year, but it's like, goodness gracious me, isn't this nuts? And then we get to Baltimore, who's really played this very sneakily, very, very sneakily. And they're like, oh, we are going to make the grab of the draft that, some people think would be going a lot higher. We're grabbing Jalen Walker. Jalen Walker, who's going to be able to come off the edge, do some crazy things for us, and that sort of thing. And then we look at the Lions. The Lions who are like, they're like, oh, there's so much draft capital here, and it's like we have a good number of picks, but we're actually the team that instead of being aggressive this year, we're going to trade down. We are going to trade down out of this round with a team like the Raiders. I'm sorry, not the Raiders, you guys, the Patriots. The Patriots, we know, drafted high, and oh man, what a good pick that was, and it's going to be nuts because the Lions are like, oh yeah, we'll give you a third too, a compensatory third, type of thing here. At least third round here. And then we're only going to ask, for a couple of late rounders. Crazy enough. And it's like the Patriots, oh my God, like their resurgence is really coming up here. As we know, they got Travis Hunter. Holy crap. I'm just seeing, Drake May, a handsomer version of Tom Brady, my own personal take, get Travis Hunter. And then, oh my God, look at here. Look what we're going to do. We're going to dress edge, a position in need, and we're grabbing Donovan Ezeraku. Donovan Ezeraku, the best player available. Let's nab our guy out of Boston College. We saw how Jeff Hafley's defense did on the Packers last week, and he coached Ezeraku. Vrabel can respect that. They grab their guy. They improve much of what they need, in getting an edge, of good caliber here. And then we get to Washington. Washington's, like, oh my God, this is so bad. Some of the players that we definitely would have went for are off the board here. We're going to go ahead and grab Josh Connerly as another team that needs, a tackle. And then look at the Packers here being incredibly clever in that they're like, we know we can trade back because our guy Kenneth Grant is going to be there, and we already got insane value. We're getting even more value here. Oh my goodness, we're such a good team. And that sort of thing, monopolizing draft picks and developing, we're still going to maintain that like youngest team in the league by doing this draft and develop strategy with like 10 plus 22 and under year old picks. Ingenious. And I'm ecstatic as a Packers fan that I get to see a round one pick in Green Bay. What a way to set the stage and be like, we run this town, man. We're going to run this league again. And everyone's going to hate it, and hate it just a little bit less than if the Cowboys were running this league, like they wish that they were, But now moving on to the Saints, a team that, hasn't picked and was in the top 10, and they're like, good Lord, what are we going to do here? What kind of picks do we need? We're just going to be simple, and we're going to grab Igbuka, the best available, because that's what a franchise does. They just make simple moves, and simple, plays, thinking, man, we don't really need a top 10 pick. We're going to be a good enough team anyways. And then the Colts, a team that, we traded back with, the Philadelphia and the Eagles, obviously pretty damn nuts, right? we're a team that has so many damn needs, and we have so many, players that we could grab. We're actually going to go ahead and we're going to grab Xavier Watts. We remember how, we got burned by the bloody, Giants who don't even have a true blazer of a weapon and that sort of thing in the first round. And we're going to make this an absolute crazy, end to this first round, and it's kind of nuts to me, when I saw the script and I was like, so I'm not going to have to put up with a bloody, Bears pick in the first round or a Vikings or a Lions fan. What are these teams doing and not even getting substantial draft picks through here? I was like, thank you, Goodell. I appreciate that the first night of the draft, I'm going to be able to sit blissfully knowing that my, division contenders, I don't have to hear their name or know that they haven't gotten any of these certain players that I'm dreading going to this team. And it's absolutely nuts. And you guys can believe it or not, you will see on draft night the kind of nuts things that are going to happen. And I'm just going to be like, what? But I want to thank you guys for watching the most accurate mock draft you will ever watch. No one, Goodell assured me that no one else is really privy to this information. And I was like, the order kind of makes sense of some of these players. But then there's clearly some discrepancy from some of these teams on their overvaluing certain players, and that sort of thing. But, tell me your guys' reactions. Tell me if you think your team was smart, and what they did here and, whether or not you're happy as a fan, because this is the way it's going to be. And, just remember that you can get all of the scripted information from here and that none of this is falsified and 100% fact check here in 2 days time or 3 days time technically, because it is 5:53 here, in Mountain Time right now at the time I'm recording this. But this just came into me, yesterday, and Goodell was like, do what you will with this information and nothing is exempt. But I want to thank you guys for watching. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And, we'll see you next Tuesday. I might record a short on my reactions to Monday night of like the key tidbits or something like that. Maybe I'll even do some recordings when they're announcing the picks on, whether or not I'm happy about it. I'm sure you guys liked how I got into this and that sort of thing. But, thank you all for watching. And as always, go Pack Go.